Where should you incorporate your business, Delaware or California? This is a very important issue that you need to get right so that you start your company up in the right state of incorporation and get it going down the right path. When we set up new corporations, we always start with the assumption that we're going to set up a Delaware corporation. Even if your company is based in California or another state, there are significant benefits from using a Delaware corporation, and we're going to explain some of those reasons in this video. First, Delaware is investor friendly. Delaware corporate law and Delaware corporations are well known and familiar and really are the gold standard of corporations. So investors understand Delaware corporations, they understand what it means to invest in Delaware corporations, and many times they'll even require that the corporation be a Delaware corporation before they invest their money. Also, by setting up a Delaware corporation from the get-go and doing it right, you may avoid the extra complications and expenses that may result from having to reincorporate or move the state of incorporation from a state like California to Delaware. So do it right. If you're interested in raising money from investors, set up the Delaware corporation and get it on the right path to money from the beginning. The next reason is administrative efficiency. Working with the Delaware Secretary of State is easy and efficient. Corporate filings are processed the same day, often very quickly. It helps facilitate getting transactions done and relieves uncertainty as to the timing of when that filing is going to be made. So there are ways to expedite the filings as well in terms of same day filing or within 4 hours and other options. But working with Delaware is quick, easy, and very efficient. So if you have a company that's going to be raising a lot of money or be very transaction heavy, Delaware Corporation is the way to go. Okay, the next reason is legal certainty. Delaware corporate law is well developed and predictable. So by having a Delaware corporation, you more likely than not will understand the consequences of making certain decisions, and you will have this very well-developed corporate law that will help guide your decisions going forward. Delaware also has a specialized court that focuses on corporate law matters. So if your corporation finds itself in a situation where it needs to rely on some judicial decision, you oftentimes can work with the Delaware courts very quickly to get those decisions made. From a corporate governance perspective, there are advantages to working with a Delaware corporation, and I want to give one example. So if you have a business, a company that's based in California, and you decide to set up a California corporation, there are some technical issues that determine how large your board of directors needs to be. So in California, if you have one shareholder, then you can have one or more directors. But as soon as you have 2 shareholders or 3 shareholders, you need to increase the size of the board of directors. So for a startup that is working to raise money or working on launching a product, it can be a big distraction to have to worry about finding another director or 2 or more that will mesh well and work well with the founder. So with the Delaware corporation, you can have one director and many shareholders and many stockholders. It's not a requirement that the size of the board of directors increases as the number of stockholders increases. So just to have that administrative flexibility and avoid the requirement of having to increase the size of the board can actually be very beneficial, and it avoids a big distraction that I've seen often with California corporations that I've come across. Another issue that you should consider relates to stockholder voting. And the one example that I would like to mention is the approval that's required for a merger transaction. So let's say that you start your company, you raise some investment money, you have preferred stock investors, you have common stockholders, and you get to the finish line and you're going to exit your company and sell it to some acquirer through a merger transaction. Well, under California law, the merger requires the separate class approval of the preferred stock and the common stock voting separately. So you can imagine a situation where the preferred stockholders want to sell and the common stockholders may not want to sell, and you may get in a situation where you will not get proper approval of the transaction. Under Delaware law, the approval is the majority of the outstanding stock, so they don't have this class vote requirement. And that's another reason why many investors like Delaware corporations, because of this this flexibility or this avoidance of having this class vote requirement that you see under California corporate law. Also, when trying to get stockholder approval of various matters, working with Delaware corporate law is more flexible than California corporate law in terms of getting approval on paper by less than unanimous consent. This relates to electing directors and other corporate actions that you may come across down the road with your corporation. So those are some significant reasons why I believe you should launch your company with the goal of setting up a Delaware corporation. Now, if you're a California-based business, there are some situations where it may make sense for you to set up a California corporation. And one reason might be that you have a closely held business that may not need to take advantage of the legal and administrative efficiencies of a Delaware corporation. If you have a closely held corporation, you don't expect to raise money or do a lot of transactions with third parties, and you just want to have the benefit of setting up the separate legal entity for limited liability protection, then maybe it makes sense just to go with the California corporation and avoid having to deal with the two states. Another reason might be an economic reason. If you simply cannot afford the additional Delaware franchise taxes, which at startup is typically not that much money, but in the range of $400 to $500, but it's still money. And so if that's an extra expense that you cannot afford above the California franchise tax, then it may make sense to only set it up in California. Now, I mentioned that I like setting up Delaware corporations because of the efficiency and the ability to know the consequences of what's going to happen with your Delaware corporation. I just want to point out, and this is under practical tip 2 here, that even if you do set up a Delaware corporation and you're operating your business in California, there's still may be situations where California corporate law will still apply. Now, there's some uncertainty as to whether this provision, which is section 2115 of the California Corporations Code, which sets up what's called a quasi-California corporation, whether that's actually legal. But given that there's this uncertainty, you need to assume that this quasi-California corporation will still apply. So if you have significant contacts here in California, even though you've set up a Delaware corporation or set up a corporation in another state, if you have significant contacts and operations in California, some significant portions of California corporate law may still apply. So you need to keep that in mind if you're incorporating your business in Delaware or another state and you're based in California. Now, the last point that I want to make is no matter where you incorporate, whether it's Delaware or California, if your company has significant operations in other states, and it was what I mentioned here under practical tip number 3, if you have significant operations in other states, you may need to qualify as a foreign corporation in those other states. So, for example, if you're based here in California and you have set up a Delaware corporation, you still need to qualify to do business in California as a foreign corporation. Your Delaware corporation is considered to be a foreign corporation relative to California. So if you have significant operations in California, then you have to qualify to do business here. And if you have similar operations in other states that are significant or trigger the foreign qualification, then you'll have to do so in other states. So to summarize, when you're thinking about where to set up your corporation, start with the idea that you're going to set up a Delaware corporation, understand the key features and reasons why you should do so, and unless there are financial or other important reasons, set up your Delaware corporation and get going with your business. Thank you.